Hi, welcome. So, going to do a little practice teaching here. Thank you for joining me. Remember, I am learning, so if you have any feedback, I really would appreciate it. It'll help me. So, we're going to start in a nice, easy seat, just sitting cross-legged. Hopefully, this is comfortable for you. Adjusting however you need to be able to sit comfortably. From here, let's sit up with a nice straight spine, and then we'll slowly just kind of check in with our breath. Not changing it, not altering it, just noticing it. When we're ready, letting our chin fall towards our chest as we exhale. Inhaling our left ear to our left shoulder. Exhaling back to center. Inhaling our right ear to our right shoulder. Exhaling to center. Let's repeat that. Inhaling left ear to left shoulder. Exhaling back to center. Inhaling right ear up to right shoulder. Inhaling all the way back up. From here, let's roll our shoulders down and back a couple of times. Continuing to just keep our breath. We'll roll them now the other direction, forward. Still going down though. From here, let's bring our hands out and let's do some wrist rolls, kind of loosening them up. We can go both directions. Just a few, just to kind of start getting some blood and some movement in them. Let's take our hands behind us, extend our legs, and let's do the same thing with our ankles. Just slowly rolling them, maybe starting by rolling little circles one way, and then we can roll circles the other way. Again, just getting a little movement here. We'll return to our seated easy seat, cross-legged position. From here, inhaling our arms up. Let's take that left hand down beside us. Right arm continuing to stay up. As we're ready, exhaling, we're going to bend towards the left, lengthening through and stretching through this right side body, getting a nice side stretch there. Inhaling up. Let's bring that right arm down beside us, moving the pup. Left arm up. And as we're ready, exhaling, we'll now lean over to the right, getting a nice stretch through this left side body. Our biceps should be kind of right alongside our ear, keeping that chest open. Inhaling all the way back up. Let's take our right hand to our left knee. We'll take our left hand back behind us. Inhaling, nice straight spine, sitting up nice and tall. As we're ready, exhaling and twisting towards the left, looking over that left shoulder. Inhaling back to center. This time we'll take our left arm to our right knee, right arm back behind us. As we're ready, inhaling, nice straight spine. We'll slowly begin to twist, looking over that right shoulder. Only coming to the point that feels comfortable for our bodies. Inhaling back to center. We're going to bring ourselves to a table. Oops. Hold that thought. We're actually going to bring ourselves We're going to bring our feet out where the soles of our feet are resting on the mat. We can bring our hands behind us, palms facing out. Bringing our feet in as far as feels comfortable. As we're ready, let's take that right ankle over the left knee, flexing that right foot, sitting up tall for a seated figure four. We'll bring that right foot down. Now let's take the left ankle right above the right knee. Again, sitting up, keeping a nice straight spine. Flexing that left foot. Bringing that left foot down. Now let's bring ourselves in to our tabletop position. So for tabletop, our knees are going to be directly under our hips and our wrists are going to be directly under our shoulders. From here, as we inhale, we're going to let our abdomen, our stomach drop towards the mat just slightly, lifting our head and our tailbone for a cow pose. Exhaling, we're going to drop our head and tailbone, arching through the spine, bringing that belly button in towards the spine for cat. Inhaling, lifting head and tailbone, letting abdomen drop, cow pose. Exhaling, arching through the back, dropping head and tailbone, cat pose, bringing that belly button in towards the spine. Inhaling, letting the abdomen drop, lifting head and tailbone, cow pose. Exhaling, arching through the back, letting that head and tailbone drop for cat. Let's do that one more time, each pose. So inhaling as we come into our cow pose. Exhaling as we go into our cat pose. Returning to a nice neutral spine, back to our basic tabletop. We're going to do bird dog pose. What do you think of bird dog pose, Mama? Yeah? She approves. So let's do bird dog pose. So for bird dog pose, you've got two options here. Okay, baby. We can take that right leg back, hip distance height. We're not lifting it. We don't want it touching the ground though. We want it about hip distance. We can stay right here. We can also add lifting our left arm if we choose. We don't have to. Bringing that left hand and right knee back down. Let's repeat that on the other side. Remembering, we can do just the leg or we can do the left leg and right arm if we choose. Let's start with the left leg straight behind us. If we like, adding that right arm. Bringing the hand and the knee back down, coming back to tabletop. We're going to take that left arm and we're going to thread it under the right arm. If you'd like, you can stay right here or you can lower it to the mat, lowering your left ear down to the mat, stretching that right arm straight out. Returning to tabletop, we're going to do that thread the needle pose now on the other side. So this time, right arm will go under the left arm. We can stay right here, or you can lower that shoulder to the mat, having that right arm straight out, right ear on the mat, letting that left arm stretch straight out in front of you. Returning to our tabletop, we're going to bring our knees a little wider than hip distance, bringing our big toes into touching. And as we're ready, we'll sit our hips back on our heels for child's pose, letting our head come down to the mat if that's comfortable. We can stack our hands in front of us, or we can have them stretched out. We can have them beside us, whatever feels right for child's pose. So we're going to move from child's pose into down dog. So if you don't already have your arms stretched out in front of you, let's bring them out. Let's have the hands about shoulder width distance apart. Spread the fingers. We're going to bring the knees in and the feet back out. And as we're ready, we'll bring the hips up and back, creating a V with our body, coming into our down dog. My little Cujo girl there definitely approves of the down dog pose. Inhaling forward, I have to step my feet back just a tiny bit. We're going to form a nice straight line with our body from head to heel, really activating through the core, activating through the thighs for plank pose. Holding here. Going ahead and lowering our knees and then lowering the rest of our bodies down to the mat. This should put your hands directly under your shoulders at this point. Feet flat, tops of your feet flat on the floor as you're ready. Inhaling up, just lifting the chest slightly off the ground for cobra. Exhaling back down, curling the toes under. When we're ready, we'll bring ourselves with our hips up and back, returning to that downward facing dog. Let's come into three-legged dog by lifting that right foot up towards the ceiling. As we're ready, we're going to step that foot up. You may need to give it a little help. We're going to step it up towards the front of our mat, coming into a lunge. So for our lunge, we can be in a high lunge with the left knee off the mat, or we can bring that left knee down to the mat and be in a low lunge, whichever one speaks to us today. They're both great poses. So from our lunge, we're going to turn that back foot where it's now on the mat, facing your toes at a 90 back on the back foot. Your left leg will be facing the mat. Still got a nice strong bend in this front right leg. Those toes facing forward to the front of the mat. 90-degree angle on that back foot. Your heel will be in the heel of your right foot in alignment with the instep of your left foot. From here, hands to shoulder height, looking out over that right hand for our warrior two. Inhaling as we bring that right hand forward, turning the palm facing up. We'll bring that right hand to the ceiling, left hand down to gently rest on our left thigh for our reverse warrior. rotating that back foot where our toes face forward again and we're on the ball of the foot. We'll go ahead and bring our hands down to surround our right foot. From here, let's do a revolved lunge by lifting that right hand up towards the ceiling and twisting towards the right. Left hand firmly planted on the mat. Right hand back down to the mat, stepping that right foot back as we return to our downward facing dog pose. Remember, for downward facing dog, hands firmly planted on the mat, about shoulder distance apart. Feet also about hip distance apart. Hips back and up, really kind of trying to, as if you're trying to push your hips towards that back wall for our down dog. When we're ready, we're going to repeat those poses on the other side. So this time we'll come into three-legged dog, lifting the left leg. As we're ready, stepping that left foot forward. You may need to help it a little bit, that's fine. So again, remembering here, we have our two options. We have our high lunge, keeping that right leg lifted, or we can bring that right knee back down to the mat for our low lunge. Both are great poses, just whichever one speaks to our bodies today. So from here, let's bring that right foot. We're going to rotate the toes facing the long side of the mat, bringing the heel in. So now that right foot is at a 90-degree angle with the short side of our mat, toes facing directly to the long side. As we're ready, we'll come up, keeping that nice strong bend in the left knee. Straight right leg, toes pointing towards the long side of your mat. On the left, you got a nice bend in the knee, toes pointing towards the top of your mat. Hips squared with the long side of your mat for warrior two. Arms out at shoulder distance. As we're ready, inhaling, we'll bring that left arm forward, turning the palm facing up. We'll then bring that left arm up to the ceiling and let that right hand gently rest on our right thigh. We're not collapsing our weight here. We're staying strong through the core. Inhaling, we're going to come back up onto the ball of that right foot, keeping that bend in this left knee, lifting the heel of the right foot. From here, let's bring the right hand down to the mat, firmly planting it. As we're ready, we can bring that left hand either to our thigh or all the way up to the ceiling for a revolved lunge. Lowering that left hand back down to the mat. We're going to bring ourselves into child's pose here. So sitting our hips back onto our heels. We can have our knees close together. We can have them more out towards the edges of the mat, toes in, whatever makes our child's pose super comfortable for us. Coming back up into the tabletop pose. As we're ready, let's step our feet up into forward fold. So for forward fold, our feet are going to be hip distance apart, bend in the knees, hinging from the hips, just letting your head and shoulders and everything relax, resting towards your thighs and the mat. Having enough bend in your knees that your hands can comfortably reach the mat. exhaling, we'll bring our hands to our shins, straightening our back, straightening our legs a little more for half lift. Holding here for a second, continuing to breathe. When we're ready, inhaling all the way up, bringing those arms down beside us, palms facing forward for our mountain pose. So our hips are still facing the front of our mat, our feet are hip distance apart, standing up nice and tall, strong spine here for our mountain pose. We're gonna move, I'm gonna do this so you can just see me a little better. We're gonna move into one of my favorite poses, do a little balancing work here. So as we're ready, let's start to slowly bring that weight into the left foot. So we're just gonna slowly kind of bring our weight over into our left foot, find a nice focal point in front of you. And then as you're ready, let's just bring that right knee up for a knee balance. Let's open that knee up to the side. So we're opening that right knee up and we're gonna come into tree pose. So for tree pose, you can be right here with the toes of your right foot just resting right there next to your left ankle. You can bring your foot to the shin, or if you'd like, you can bring that foot all the way up to your left thigh. You may get wobbly. Sometimes it's a little blustery for the tree. Finding your balance though, finding your focal point. Hands can be at heart center, they can be out beside you, they can be lifted, whatever speaks to you today. Let's return to our mountain pose. Feet hip distance apart, palms facing forward, nice strong straight spine. Now we're going to repeat that on the other side by slowly taking our weight into our right leg. So we're going to just slowly move that weight over so that it's resting here on the right. As we're ready, finding our focal point, we can lift that left knee for our knee balance on this side. As we're ready, we'll open that left knee out to the side, remembering we can bring the toes right down by the ankle, on the shin, or if we'd like for tree, we can also bring it to the right, left foot to the right thigh. Hands can be out beside us, they can be at heart center, they can be extended towards the ceiling, whatever feels right for our bodies today. For this time, I'm going to bring them to heart center. That's just my choice. Returning to our mountain pose. Great job there. We're going to inhale our arms up, exhaling as we hinge from the hips, not just bending the back here and arching it. We want to hinge from the hips, bend those knees, coming into our forward fold. Planting our hands, bending our knees as much as we need to have our hands firmly planted on the mat. As we're ready, let's step ourselves back so that we can come into our child's pose. Remembering for child's pose that you can have your knees close together and sit back on your hips back on your heels that way. Toes can be curled under or they can be flat on the mat. I would recommend flat on the mat. Or we can widen our knees, bringing the toes touching, and sit our hips back that way. Both great stretches, just whichever feels best for your body. Resting here, focusing in on your breath, taking a minute to just come back to your breath as we rest for a minute in child's pose. Let's sit up off to one hip. And what we're going to do is we're going to slowly bring ourselves onto is the word I was looking for, our backs. Hopefully, if you also have a pup enjoying your mat, they will cooperate and move so you can lay your head down and nobody will get bit. That almost happened. Thank you, Mama. All right. So, reclining on your back, hands resting straight out in a T. As we're ready, we're going to do a supine twist. So we can do this two ways. We can bring our feet out to the sides of our mat, widening our knees a little bit, and then we can just gently let our knees slowly drop to the left as we look out over the right. Or we can do this pose with our knees closer together and more stacked. That's totally up to us. But again, we're going to let our knees either way, if we have the wide or the less wide stance, we're just going to be looking over our right arm as our knees rest to the left. Inhaling as we come back up, let's draw our knees into the chest and we will rock back and forth slowly, just allowing ourselves to get a nice little massage in that lower back. We'll bring our feet back down to the mat. Again, we can take the wider stance or we can keep our feet closer together, arms back out in that T. This time we're going to look out over that left arm as we gently let the knees drop over to the right. Remembering we can do that with the wider stance or the shorter stance, whichever speaks to our body today. Inhaling back up. Let's repeat that earlier pigeon pose we did, modified pigeon pose, figure 4, that we did when we were seated, by taking our right ankle over our left knee. We are at the cool down portion, so we want to kind of take this a little easier. So what we'll do is that right ankle over the left knee, flexing that right foot, and then you can take, if you'd like, and just gently guide that right knee a little further away from you, if that feels okay. We'll bring that right knee back down, that right foot back down. So at this point, soles of our feet are on the mat, they're hip distance apart, fairly close to our bottoms. When we're ready, we'll bring that right ankle up and rest it below the left knee, the right knee. We're bringing the left ankle up over the right knee. Okay, and if we like, we could take that left hand and put a little pressure on that left knee, just pushing it away from us a tiny bit. Bringing that left foot back down to the mat, hip distance apart, fairly close to your bottom. Bringing the palms right down by your side, pushing them into the mat. As we're ready, on an exhale, bringing our hips up towards the ceiling for bridge pose. So here in bridge pose, the soles of our feet are going to be on the mat, our shoulders, our head, and our arms will all be touching the mat. Our middle and lower back, our bottoms, our thighs, everything else lifted up towards the ceiling for bridge. Slowly, gently lowering our hips back down to the mat. Let's draw our legs in. Draw our knees in, draw our knees in. Let's rock back and forth again, just getting a little bit of a release in our lower back. We'll bring the feet back down to the mat. Soles fairly close to our bottoms. This time, let's open our knees up so that the soles of our feet come to touching. So the soles of our feet are going to be touching, the sides of our feet will be resting on the mat, knees opened up out to the side. We can have our hands just right here beside us as we come into a reclined butterfly pose. Resting here. From here, let's go ahead and bring our legs out, letting the feet just kind of splay open near the edges of our mats. Palms, arms just resting beside us in a way that feels comfortable. Closing our eyes, coming into Shavasana, our final relaxation pose. So here we really want this pose to be nice and relaxing. We want to be able to release all of our tension. For some people, having the legs extended does not feel good on the lower back. If that's you, please feel free to either return to that reclined butterfly if that felt nice and relaxing for you, or you can bring the feet out. You can bend the knees, bringing the feet out to the edges of the mat, and just kind of let the knees drop in towards each other. For a lot of people that do have that issue with the lower back, that kind of releases the tension. I do love a good traditional Shavasana, so I'm going to go ahead and extend my legs again. Again, closing your eyes, just starting to focus in on your breathing, letting yourself slowly just release all that tension, relaxing into the mat. Just focusing on your breath and allowing yourself to relax a little deeper with each exhale. Continuing to relax, just following your breath. We'll start to slowly come back into the room. Let's move through our fingers and our toes. Just kind of bringing ourselves fully back into our bodies. Continuing to rest here with our eyes closed though, just moving through our fingers and toes. As we're ready, we may want to extend our hands overhead, Getting a nice full body stretch from fingertips to tips of toes. And then we can draw the knees in and we can bring the arms down as we're ready. Slowly, gently curling over onto one side, letting our head rest on our arm. As we're ready, let's go ahead and bring ourselves slowly, gently back up to our easy seated position, finding a way to sit that is really comfortable for us, continuing to keep eyes closed. We'll inhale our arms up, palms together, exhaling to heart center. Inhaling the arms up, palms together, exhaling to heart center. Let's do that one more time. Inhaling, arms up, palms together, exhaling to heart center. Thank you so much for checking out the practice today. And again, if you have any feedback for me that will help me build my teaching skills, besides obviously maybe the locking the dogs out of the room, do let me know. Thank you.